Hi, my name is Devon Viola, and I'm the owner of Mad Garden. Mad Garden is both an online nursery and an ecological landscaping service. Today, let me show you how I turned this poorly designed, neglected landscape into a low-maintenance native plant garden. The first step was to interview my clients and scope out the site. They said their main goal was to introduce more native plants back into their landscape to support wildlife. They want a garden that features a diversity of colorful flowers, and they also want it to be easy to maintain. They also mentioned they prefer a semi-wild garden with a more natural look. That was music to my ears, because if you want both low maintenance and beautiful and ecological, you can't go wrong with a native perennial flower garden. Once I checked out the property and recorded information about the sun, the soil texture, the moisture levels, I began the design process. I decided to use traditional media to illustrate this design. I created a technical illustration that specifies the placement and the spacing of the plants, and I created an artistic illustration of what the finished garden could look like in a couple of years once the plants get established. I selected plants that can tolerate shade to partial sun, most of them with showy flowers, and all native to the local area. Once the clients approved the design, it was time to start preparing the beds. I started by removing this tiny spruce and Japanese maple, which the clients were not particularly fond of. Then I weeded the entire space. I pulled weeds by hand and used a scuffle hoe. The homeowners had a compost pile that was already full of weeds, so we agreed I would put all the discarded material there. The chickens came to see if I was bringing them anything good. In the course of weeding, I uncovered 3 different kinds of weed barrier. I'm really not a fan of this stuff. Clearly, it didn't work to prevent weeds from growing, and it generated a lot of trash that was very difficult to remove from the soil. Some of the existing plants were spared, including this aster. This is a really nice, late-blooming native flower that we're definitely going to leave. Others had to be removed, such as non-native creeping jenny. Once the beds were finally cleared, I brought out the native plant plugs and staged them according to the design plan. Then planting began. These plugs were small, but I installed several hundred of them so that by the time they're mature, there will be little or no empty space in the beds. The planting took place in October. While spring might be a more popular choice, fall is actually an excellent time to install a garden, maybe even better than spring, because over the winter the plants will be able to establish their roots a little bit and get a head start. The final step was to water everything in. It took about 8 hours to prepare the beds, install the garden, and clean up. Watch out for the follow-up video where I'm going to show you what the garden looks like in its first summer after planting. And I'm going to try to also get out here again the year after that so that you can see how the perennial garden continues to develop and get better over time as the plants get more established. I hope this video inspires you to plant more natives. Check out madgarden.us to learn more about my landscape design services or to check out the online nursery.